You have 48 hours. Pack your things and get out. This house belongs to us now. My younger sister, Christina, said that as she looked around the living room, her eyes scanning the place as if she were appraising its value. My name is Michelle. I'm 30. I live with my parents in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, working as a software engineer. Financially, I have everything I need. That morning was supposed to be like any other. 5 a.m., my favorite time of day. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen as I wrote code in silence, my own sacred routine. This house was built by my grandfather. It's old, a little creaky, but it's the place I've always loved, the place I've protected. Then, a sudden noise broke the stillness. I looked up, and there she was, my sister Christina, who hadn't set foot in this house for years. And beside her stood her pretentious husband, Jonathan. "Michelle, this is kind of sudden," Christina began, her voice as cold as a winter wind. Before I could respond, she looked around the room again and said, "You have 48 hours. Pack your things and get out. This house belongs to us now." For a moment, my mind went completely blank. I thought I must have misheard. But as I stayed silent, my mother appeared from the back of the living room and added, as if to drive the knife in deeper, "Michelle, listen. Christina and Jonathan can make better use of this house. You've always been alone, but they actually have a plan for it." Something inside me snapped at those words, but it wasn't a burst of anger or anything hot like that. It was something colder, sharper, and far more precise. I slowly raised my head, looked my mother in the eyes, and said, "A plan? You mean like the kind where someone else pays off a mortgage that's been taken out against this house?" Her face instantly turned pale. Then I shifted my gaze to Christina, who looked so smug just a moment ago. "Do you even know about the $150,000 loan?" My calm counterattack left both Christina and Jonathan speechless. In their heads, they'd only been thinking, "We're getting a free house." Finally, I turned to my father, who was staring awkwardly at the floor. "Dad, aren't you gonna say anything? Is this my severance pay for all I've done? 48 hours to disappear? That's a pretty terrible return on investment." The room was swallowed by an awkward silence. They probably expected me to cry, to beg, but I wouldn't fight on their terms anymore. I exhaled, then said brightly, almost cheerfully, "Fine, got it. I'll start preparing." That wasn't a surrender. It was a declaration of war. In my head, the code had already started running. Project name, payback to family. Deadline, 48 hours, a flawless plan. I went back to my room and quietly closed the door. Not a single tear fell. Instead, adrenaline surged through me. I decided to start by listing all the assets. If they thought they were taking the shell of this house, I would strip away everything that gave it value. Every ounce of comfort, every function, every trace of worth. Did they even understand why this house still existed in the first place? Years ago, my father lost his retirement savings in a scam, and my mother's part-time earnings barely covered her spending habits. To make up for it, they borrowed a large sum from the bank, using this house as collateral. When my grandfather passed away, the house's title was transferred to them. They used that to get the loan. But of course, they defaulted on the payments. The house was on the verge of being seized. I still remember that night. My father with his head in his hands over the foreclosure notice, and my mother pleading, "Michelle, you can fix this, can't you? If you pay it off, we'll put the house in your name." The bank's terms were brutal. Pay off the overdue balance immediately and clear the remaining principal plus interest. $150,000 within 3 years. Otherwise, the house would go to auction. "It's for the family," she said. With that single comment, I decided to put off my own dream of buying a home, something I'd been planning for 3 years, and instead kept making the monthly payments diligently without fail. When I saw their relieved faces, I thought I'd done the right thing. But that wasn't gratitude. That was the look of people satisfied with a convenient wallet. And it wasn't just the loan, that big L-shaped sofa in the living room. I bought it after months of overtime, imagining the family relaxing together to watch movies. The 65-inch OLED TV? I bought it because Dad once said, "The new TVs these days are really something." When the washing machine broke, I bought a new one, the high-end model with a dryer. When the roof leaked, I paid for the repairs. When the walls faded, I repainted them. I had poured everything I had into this project called a home. My time, my money, and my love. All I wanted was for my family to live comfortably. but after paying off every last cent, this is how they repay me. So now, within 48 hours, I'll extract every piece of my life from this place. Safely, completely. First, I needed to secure an essential external ally for this operation, the moving company. It was still early in the morning. I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, Portland Emergency Moving Service 24 hours. A few options popped up. Among them, one company stood out, Green Mountain Movers, top-rated reviews and a sleek website. Worth a shot. I dialed their number. To my surprise, a man picked up after a few rings. His name was Daniel. His voice was groggy but professional. "Good morning. I'm terribly sorry to call so early, but I need an emergency moving job done today." I explained the situation briefly and desperately. At first, Daniel sounded genuinely thrown. "Today?" he said, incredulous. But when I listed the items to be moved, the sofa, the TV, the washer, the dining chair set, other appliances, and personal things, his tone shifted. He probably realized this wasn't a messy runaway. It was a proper business job. "All right, we'll need to charge a rush fee, but we can make arrangements. The earliest we can get a crew there is, let's see, noon today. Will that work?" Perfect. At that hour, everyone would usually be out, so I could erase my traces completely. "Yes, noon please. And could the team be as quiet as possible?" "Don't worry, we're professionals." Daniel's single sentence gave me more reassurance than any consolation talk could. I hung up, breathed out, and checked the first stage off the plan. All that remained was to wait for the execution. I opened the receipts file and began sticking little post-it notes on each thing to be taken. "This is mine. That's mine. That one too. All of it." For the hours before noon, I packed calmly. My parents and Christina probably expected me to be in my room, sobbing. Their occasional laughter from the living room no longer did anything to my nerves. It didn't even register as background noise. At the appointed noon, the intercom buzzed. The Green Mountain Movers team led by Daniel arrived. Quiet, efficient, professional. I met them at the front door and pointed to the items marked with Post-its. They seemed a little surprised at my composure, but they kept to the job and didn't waste a word. First out was the big L-shaped sofa, the symbol of the family togetherness I'd once imagined. Two movers hoisted it with practiced ease and carried it slowly through the doorway. Watching it go, I felt no sadness. Instead, it was like a heavy chain had been cut. That wasn't a sentimental relic. It was something I'd bought with my own money. My property, and I was reclaiming it. Next, the 65-inch TV was unmounted and wrapped in its protective cover. The washer, the microwave, the toaster. They were loaded onto the truck one after another like a disciplined platoon. One mover paused while carrying a dining chair and asked, "Is the table all right to leave?" Yes, the table belonged to my grandfather, but those chairs, I bought them last year. He nodded, understanding, and carried the chairs carefully away. In that moment, I realized I wasn't stripping the house itself from them. I was extracting with surgical precision the value I had put into it. My mind, ever engineer, remained cool and focused. This project would be executed without bugs. That was all I could think about. After the mover's truck left quietly, I stood alone in the center of the house. The domestic noises that furniture and curtains had absorbed were gone. The house felt like a cathedral, eerily still. A normal person might have been crushed by a sense of loss at that sight. But what filled me was a strange, fierce sense of accomplishment and an excited anticipation for the next act of the show. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and photographed the mover's receipt. Perfect record of the job completed. I then placed the house key gently on the dining table where the chair had been. I no longer needed that key. I took my laptop to a nearby cafe, started the paperwork for a new place, and waited. At the exact moment 48 hours were up, my smartwatch vibrated softly, the buzzer signaling the show's opening. Gazing at the sunset through the cafe window, I sipped an espresso. Right then, my phone lit up with a call. "Mom." A call from the audience after the first act, perhaps? Of course I didn't pick up. I let it go to voicemail and listened. On the speaker was Christina's hysterical voice and my mother's flustered attempts to calm her. "There's nothing in the house, Mom. It's empty. Michelle stole everything. She took it all," Christina shrieked. "Calm down, Christina. I've been trying to get Michelle on the phone, but she's not answering. What is going on?" My mother's voice wavered with panic. From the other end, I could hear my mother unraveling. Her script had been that I'd cry, pack miserably, and leave, and then Christina and Jonathan would live comfortably. She never dreamed the whole set would be gone. I texted my best friend and lawyer, Rebecca, briefly. "The curtain has risen. Now we wait for the lawyer's entrance." Her quick reply was reassuring. "Popcorn ready." I ordered another espresso and waited for my father's call. As expected, his number popped up minutes later. I sent that to voicemail too. His voice on the recording sounded less angry than bewildered. "Michelle? What did you do?" "The house. It's empty. Call me back. You've gone too far." "Too far? You drove me to pay $150,000, worked myself to the bone for this family, and then you kick me out without a second thought." "That's not too far. That's what you are." I set my phone to silent and left it on the table. With that, the noise wouldn't disturb me. I sipped my coffee slowly, imagining them pacing around an empty house. The next morning, I was at Rebecca's law office, a modern glass space. She handed me a cup of herbal tea and grinned mischievously. "So, last night's empty castle caused quite a stir. I listened to the voicemails. Quite the panic." "It was the perfect opening act, but that was only the overture. The main course is coming," I said. I set the thick receipts file and an old photo of my grandfather, Frank, on the table. Rebecca flipped through the receipts and exhaled in appreciation at the volume. "This is remarkable, perfect evidence. Ownership of the furniture and appliances is indisputably yours. Even if they scream theft, the police will likely treat it as a civil matter." "See? But this is where the real work begins. Rebecca, I'm not asking you to play defense. I want her to go on the offensive." I pointed to the old photograph of my grandfather. In it, Frank was lifting a little girl, me, onto his shoulders, smiling with unguarded joy. He'd built that house with his own hands, proud and stubborn to the end. This house was originally my grandfather's. I always believed my parents inherited it legally, but something doesn't add up. The way my father panicked, it was like he was terrified I'd find out something. Rebecca's expression sharpened instantly. The lawyer in her woke up. She set her teacup down and leaned forward. "I see. So you think the inheritance process wasn't transparent? All right, we'll dig. If we check the county registry and the will records, we might find something. Give me your grandfather's full name and the approximate date of his death." I gave her everything I knew. She squeezed my shoulder firmly. "Leave it to me. You've already taken the hardest step, reclaiming your own life. Let the professionals handle the rest." When I left her office, the Portland sky was painfully blue, almost mocking in its brightness. Yet for the first time in years, I felt calm. It wasn't just my fight anymore. And deep down, I knew. The truth waiting to surface would be far greater than anything I could imagine. Those people still wandering around that empty house had no idea yet that what they were about to lose was far more valuable than old furniture. Only 2 days later, a short text from Rebecca appeared on my phone. "Come to the office now." Even through those few words, I could sense her barely contained excitement and a thread of professional fury. When I opened her office door, she was staring grimly at her monitor. The moment she saw me, she turned her chair around. "Michelle, brace yourself. I found something huge." On the screen was a digitized legal document officially registered and sealed at the Chittenden County Clerk's Office. Title: Last Will and Testament of Frank Holmes. My grandfather's name. "Your parents told you there was no will when he passed, right?" she asked. "Yes. They said he never made one, so the estate went to his spouse and children under state law." That was a lie. A big one. Rebecca spat the words out, almost like a curse. She moved the mouse and zoomed in on the relevant section of the will. Amid the dense legal language, one unbelievable sentence stood out, written clearly and unmistakably. "All real estate, including the land and residence located in suburban Portland, Oregon, shall be bequeathed solely to my beloved granddaughter, Michelle Holmes." My breath caught. What does that mean? It means exactly what it says. From the moment your grandfather passed, the house legally belonged to you. Your parents and Christina had zero inheritance rights. They knew this and concealed it from you, deceived you, and even tried to evict you from property that was, under law, yours all along. That's not a family dispute. That's fraud and breach of trust. As I listened to Rebecca's calm explanation, fragments of past memories began to snap together in my mind like pieces of a puzzle. The day my grandfather marked my height on the pillar and said, "Someday you'll be the one to protect this house." It wasn't just a gentle charm or a kind gesture. It was a message for me, a message for my future. Now I understood why my parents accepted my sacrifices so easily, why my father always looked uneasy when the topic of the house came up. They'd been living under a quiet dread that one day I'd discover what they'd buried. They numbed their guilt with my kindness. Beyond anger, a cold, absolute resolve welled up from deep in my gut. If there was a truth they had tried to hide, then wasn't it my final duty, as a granddaughter, to expose it to the light of day? I turned to Rebecca and spoke quietly, yet with unmistakable clarity. "Rebecca, teach them reality." "With pleasure. That's what I'm here for." Rebecca flashed a feral grin, as if she had been waiting for this moment all along. The next day, a certified letter bearing Rebecca's name arrived at the family home. It contained 2 enclosures. Part 1, a formal notice asserting my ownership of all purchased furniture and appliances, warning that any false accusation of theft would result in a defamation lawsuit. Part 2, a copy of Frank Holmes's will, officially notifying them that the rightful owner of the property was Michelle Holmes. It warned that my parents and Christina's family were now in unlawful occupancy and advised immediate evacuation. Rebecca later told me that by that afternoon, my phone had been flooded with calls. Dozens, hundreds, from every family member. She only answered one. My mother's. "Put Michelle on. I need to talk to her," my mother shouted. Rebecca's voice, she said, was cool and precise. "Michelle will not be speaking with you. All future correspondence must go through this office in writing. Also, please be aware that damages accrue daily for unlawful occupation." That single statement left my mother speechless, and the call ended abruptly. They'd always seen me as the emotional one. Easy to guilt, easy to control. But now they were facing something emotion couldn't move, the law itself. Of course, they didn't accept defeat. They hired a local attorney and tried to challenge the will, claiming Frank was elderly, incapable of sound judgment. Or Michelle must have manipulated him. But Rebecca had already anticipated every word. Within hours, she submitted evidence. The results of a medical exam taken just weeks before the will's signing, and a video of my grandfather, bright-eyed and laughing, competing in a local chess tournament. His mental sharpness put most 30-year-olds to shame. Their desperate defense collapsed in court. The judge upheld the will in full and issued a formal eviction order against my parents and Christina's family. On the last weekend, they were allowed to stay in the house. I visited it with Rebecca. Of course, not to go inside, but for a meeting with the real estate agent. Yes, I had decided to sell that house. The memories of my grandfather would remain safely in my heart. I thought it was best to sever the ties of the past physically as well. As we spoke with the agent in front of the house, Christina suddenly burst out from inside, her face twisted with anger and jealousy. "Michelle, how dare you? Do you think you can get away with doing this?" "Whether I get away with it is for the court to decide." "Oh, and make sure you pay the damages for the period of unlawful occupation. And I'm sure the legal fees for your lawyer will be quite something too, won't they?" I smiled warmly. Next to me, Rebecca stood with her arms crossed, gazing down at Christina with an icy calm. Christina bit her lip in frustration, speechless. She no longer had any power over me, and that, more than anything, was what she couldn't bear. Through the gap in the curtain, I could see my parents peeking out from inside the house. They didn't even have the courage to face me anymore. Pathetic. They'd lost everything. Family trust, the reputation they'd built over decades, and now even their home. It was all the result of their own choices. The house sold shockingly fast. It was a well-built home in a quiet suburb of Portland. When the real estate agent called to confirm that the sale had gone through, I finally felt like I could breathe again. For the first time in years, one long, exhausting project had finally reached its end. As ordered by the court, my parents and Christina's husband, Jonathan, vacated the house by the eviction deadline, practically sneaking out in the middle of the night. All they left behind were some cheap, worn-out dishes and a stack of unpaid utility bills. The money from the sale became the foundation for my new life. I used part of it as a down payment on my new apartment and invested the rest wisely. I no longer had to pour my hard-earned money into someone else's needs. Every cent could now go toward my own future. According to distant relatives, things didn't go well for them afterward. When Christina and Jonathan lost the assets they had counted on, their marriage fell apart quickly. Jonathan's flashy sales job couldn't keep up with Christina's spending habits or their new apartment's rent. The last I heard, they were in the middle of a divorce, and Christina was couch hopping in California looking for work. My parents fared even worse. Word of the concealed will spread fast through the community they'd lived in for years. Obsessed with appearances, they moved far from Portland, to a small rental apartment in some rural town. My father, stripped of his pride, lost all motivation, while my mother continued to complain to anyone who would listen that it's all Michelle's fault. Losing their house and social standing wasn't enough to balance the scales. Rebecca was already preparing to file criminal charges for concealing the will. The price they would pay wouldn't just be financial anymore. The day they would have to face their guilt behind iron bars was drawing near. Even when I heard rumors of their downfall, my heart didn't stir. There was no hatred left, no anger, only calm, unshakable indifference. That, more than anything, proved they were no longer part of my life story. I blocked all their numbers. They didn't know my new address. Physically, digitally, emotionally, I had cut every tie. What followed was a peace so deep it almost felt unreal. A few months later, I made a major decision to rebuild my foundation from scratch. I left Portland and moved to Denver, Colorado. I wanted a clean slate, a place untouched by the past. Fortunately, a green tech startup there recognized my experience and offered me a position as project manager. Financial independence I'd already achieved. But in Denver, in this new life, I finally gained emotional independence as well. I no longer had to tiptoe around anyone's moods or sacrifice myself to please others. I held the steering wheel of my life firmly in my own hands, and that sense of control was the purest form of strength I'd ever known. About a year after settling in Denver, Rebecca came to visit on her vacation. We celebrated quietly in my new apartment. She looked around, her expression softening. "This place is beautiful," she said. "It feels so... you. It's all thanks to you, Rebecca. Without you, I might still be chained to that house." "No," she shook her head. "I just showed you the legal path. You're the one who stood up and executed that wild, brilliant 48-hour plan. That strength was all yours." She was right. I had been strong all along. For years, I'd lived under the curse of family, doubting my own worth, but I was never weak. The courage to believe in myself, to say no to injustice, had always been there, waiting to wake up. Maybe everything that happened was just the rough but necessary treatment to awaken that sleeping lion inside me.